Thank you guys so much for chatting with me. This is such a special series. I really think that there's so much depth to all of your questions. I mean, to all of your characters, I should say.
Oh,
Christina,
thank you.
right off the bat, we are introduced to Kat, who is just a challenging, I should say. She's interesting because she has an agenda. What kind of description did they really give you as far as the backstory for Kat and why she is so manipulative, is how they've described her?
Right. Well, I was actually very interested to see how you would describe her. um, I'd say, well, I don't want to give away things because you do find out quite a few things about her as the series goes on that wasn't obvious at the beginning. But what I can say is that they explained to me that she was a quite a famous TV relationship specialist. And that's one of the reasons why I feel she has this kind of sense of entitlement, which was another thing they told me. So it was like sort of narcissistic, but then you kind of realize why as it goes on. So those are the sorts of things that I knew going in, and then peel back the layers of the onion as it goes.
Shalini, I'm worried about Dr. Kabir because I feel like she is leading with her emotions rather than everyone else who seems to be all about either themselves or everything getting the ship together. You're a people person as a chief physician, though, so your first concerns are the actual individuals. What is
Yeah,
it that they told you about going forward, how Dr. Kabir is focused? Is she focused more on the population and getting them healthy and stable, or is her concern also the ship at this point, the way that everyone else's is?
I think in terms of how she was first introduced to me was um, that her job is an important part of her, and an important part of her identity. And I think she has a very kind of, she does have a big picture in her head in terms of kind of the well-being of the ship. Um, but I think her focus is very much on the individual, and that is how kind of that is how she contributes to to the arc. Um, but yeah, I think she is a people person and she's a genuine empath. So I think it's very much kind of dealing with kind of the individual as opposed to kind of always thinking big picture, which I think you see some of the other characters are dealing with. It's very much kind of who comes to her babe with what need.
Christina, I'm curious to know how far, if they even told you, how far Kat's willing to go for her agenda.
Well, you do see how far she's willing to go. Again, I don't want to say anything that would give away a major plot point. But what I will say is that she's not one-dimensional in the sense that she's only out for herself and she'll stop at nothing. There are very human aspects of her that you'll see as the show progresses. But she is pretty wild. So I will surprise you with how far she can take some things, how self-interested she can be sometimes.
Shalini, I was going to ask you if Dr. Kabir able to find a friend in anyone here on this staff. I mean, all of them seem very focused. They're all very, as we discussed, getting the mission done, and she's more sort of an empath and she's feeling things. will she be able to find someone she can relate to along the way or even confide in? I'm worried that she'll be the lone wolf in this because she's the only one who seems to be right now focused on feeling rather than getting everything up and running most of all.
Yeah, I mean, she has, there are definite kind of moments of connection, and I think everyone around her is very aware of how overwhelmed she is and tries to help in whatever way they can. But you do see quite early on the beginnings of a very beautiful friendship between her and Strickland, which was really beautiful to play, especially considering how generous um, and beautiful an actor Pavle is. So that came very naturally. And then as well, this kind of connection that develops between her and Garnett. Um, so she does, I think she is very much aware that she has friends around her, but I think she takes so much responsibility upon her own shoulders that she doesn't always help herself.
Well, I think there's so much of an adrenaline rush. There's so much of an edge of your seat aspect to this. And there's so much of a question mark to each and every single character on the show. Shalini, is that what you think is going to make the arc a fast fan favorite series?
Yeah, I think what's beautiful about this show is that it's so strongly character driven. And even though it is very much sits in the genre of sci-fi, it's a very character driven and it's very human story. And so even though I know what's coming, I was still so completely drawn and drawn into it and wanting to completely with everyone. And just the dynamics, the changing dynamics of relationships as kind of as they, because also remember these are very new relationships. These are people having to band together who don't really know each other very well. So everything you're discovering is in real time, which is really
Hmm.
exciting.